Hinterkaifeck was a small farm situated about 70 kilometers north of Munich, Germany. 6 inhabitants lived in this farm. The parents, Andres Gruber and Cecilia Gruber, their daughter, Victoria Gabriel, and Victoria's children, 7-year-old Cecilia and 2-year-old Joseph, and the maid, Maria Baumgartner. On the evening of 31st March 1922, all the inhabitants of the farm were brutally murdered. This is one of the most gruesome and baffling crimes in German history, and it remains unsolved even to this day. Strange things began to occur in and around Hinterkaifeck sometime shortly before the massacre. A few months before the attack, the family maid quit, claiming the house was haunted and that she kept hearing strange noises. Just a few weeks prior to the attack, Andres found a newspaper on the property that no one nearby had subscribed to. Days before the murders, Andres told his neighbors that he discovered fresh tracks on the snow that led from the forest to the farm's machine room. The machine room door lock was broken, and even freakier, the tracks did not lead away from the house again. Strangely, when Andres looked all over the farm, he found nothing and no one. Later that night, they heard footsteps in the attic. Andres searched the farm again to no avail. Although Andres told several people about these observations, he refused any kind of help, and the details went unreported to the police. This ultimately proved to be a fatal mistake. On the afternoon of March 31st, 1922, the new maid, Maria Baumgartner, arrived at the farm along with her sister. Her sister left the farm after a short stay, and she was likely the last person to see the inhabitants alive. That evening, Victoria Gabriel, her daughter, and her parents Andres and Cecilia were lured to the family barn, where they were murdered one by one. The perpetrator used a mattock and killed the family with blows to the head. He then moved into the living quarters, where he murdered the sleeping maid and young Joseph, Victoria's 2-year-old son. The murders went unnoticed by anyone for 4 days, until the village guide and his 2 associates arrived to check up on the farm. They found the bodies of Andres, his wife Cecilia, his daughter Victoria, and his granddaughter Cecilia lifeless in the barn, and the 2 remaining inhabitants, the maid and young Joseph, murdered in the living quarters. After further investigation, it was concluded that the motive wasn't robbery, as nothing was missing from the house. A large amount of money was found in the house, completely untouched. The murderers seemed to have remained at the farm for several days after committing the crime, as someone had fed the cattle and finished the entire supply of bread from the kitchen. However, despite vigorous investigation and repeated arrests, no murderer has ever been found.
Around 2 or 3 months ago, I used to live in this small, quiet town. The whole area felt a little desolate, and to be perfectly honest, it was much more forest than town. One night I was driving home after a drive to the city. It was quite the distance, and if my memory serves me right, it was past midnight. Sometime in the drive, I hit something I didn't see. There was no screech or yell, or not even a whimper. I was hoping maybe it was a piece of log or rocks or something. I decided to pull over just in case to see if there was any damage. didn't really notice anything of concern at first glance. I looked around. There was no damage on my car, and there was no body or no animals to be seen. All my eyes saw was this vast forest, and all my ears heard was the sound of crickets in the distance. And then I spotted something, or someone. A slender young lady, perhaps in her mid-20s or early 30s. She seemed strange. Well, obviously. She was dressed in nothing but an old white robe with a slight smile on her face, and she seemed to be carrying what looked like an infant in her arms. I was naturally a little creeped out, but a part of me thought maybe she's looking for help. She then started walking towards me, slowly. She was almost like a statue. It's really hard to explain. She didn't have any pupils, didn't say a word, didn't blink. She just slowly walking in my direction with a smile on her face. Seconds later, she was right in front of me, just standing there, staring. What happens next haunts me to this day. It's difficult to even put into words. It looks as if she voluntarily twisted and snapped her own neck. The blood vessels in her eyes nearly popped, and I noticed blood dripping from her nostrils. All this while maintaining a creepy grin. I bolted. Got in my car, hit the gas. To this day, I am completely clueless about what went down that night. I don't know who she was, what she was doing. I don't know. I haven't seen her again, and I pray to God I never will.
This happened to me a couple of years ago. After a long and stressful few weeks at work, I wanted to take a little vacation for a few days. So I decided to drive to this small cabin my grandfather used to use. It was quite far from the town I lived in. The road to the cabin had mostly thick jungle on either side, completely devoid of any visible human residency. I didn't really mind it. All I wanted was to take some time off from the big, busy town and have some peace and quiet. After some time driving, I reached the cabin. I've come here once before, but it was with my parents when I was like 10 years old. When this happened, I was 22, so it felt like I was here for the first time. The place had a eerie feel to it. All around it was just thick jungle. I did feel a bit uncomfortable, but I ignored it and decided to go in. It was about 7 p.m. I had settled into the cabin and was sitting on the couch reading a book. Then I suddenly heard a sharp crunch from outside the cabin. It sounded like someone or something was messing around in the bushes. I felt uneasy, but I decided to go out and check around just out of curiosity. I heard something from inside the jungle. I felt like I was being watched. Something was moving. I heard something creeping up behind me swiftly. My whole body just felt frozen. I didn't want to look behind me. But of course I did, and I immediately wished I didn't. I didn't know what it was. It was this disturbing humanoid creature, grey-skinned, red eyes, sharp teeth. I was terrified. It looked like it was about to pounce at me, and I just turned around and ran to my car and raced the hell out of there, never looking back. I was obviously very shaken and confused. I still have no idea what that thing was. All I can say for sure is it wanted me dead. Needless to say, I never ever went to that cabin again. If you're enjoying the content, consider liking and subscribing. It'll really help out the channel and I can post more in the future. Turn on post notifications as well so you can stay updated. Alright, back to the video. I remember it being one cold, quiet night. I was working my usual night shift in this 24/7 cafe. Every other night I have a coworker with me, one of my close friends, Jake, but today he called in sick. It didn't really bother me that much. I've worked the night shift alone before. Tonight, however, felt a bit odd. Usually at this hour, there would be a group of late teens coming in for a snack after some late night concert, or a tired suit looking for hot coffee, or even your regular brooding, slow-talking, hoodie-wearing night ranger. But this night was different. I was completely alone. No business, no company, just me. After getting bored of looking at the unmoving front door, I decided to play with my phone. Finally, a customer, I thought to myself before looking up from my phone. And when I did look up, when I did focus my attention towards whoever just came in, a chill ran down my spine. It was a ghostly, pale young woman, dressed in just a white robe. And then she started to float forward towards me. Maybe it was just somebody pulling a prank, I thought. Of course not. It's 1 a.m. and she's fucking floating. She froze halfway. She had dark hair and seemed almost inanimate. She stood still, just staring blankly at the floor. She looked right at me. She had no pupils. She kept looking right at me. What's wrong, buddy? You saw a ghost or something? When did you come in? I just walked in. The rest of the night was uneventful. Thankfully so. The guy who walked in said I was just staring at nothing. Absolutely nothing. But what I saw was real. Whoever it is I saw was real. But I never saw her again. And I hope it stays that way.
It had only been a week since the incident. And by the incident, of course, I mean the zombie virus outbreak. It came out of nowhere, it spread like wildfire, and, well, now everyone is a mindless, dangly, dead thing with an appetite for the living. So far, I've managed to avoid the virus. From what I've noticed, it seems as if it's only spread when one of the living gets bitten by the dead. But I had other problems that day. I was very hungry. And on top of that, all the canned food I had collected was gone. I had to find more food before nightfall, at least a couple energy bars if I was going to continue functioning. I knew that there was a supermarket nearby, and my plan was to get there and hopefully find something to eat. It was a gamble, because if that place was swarming with zombies, it might just be more trouble than it's worth. Gotta be careful here. Taking on 2 of them on a weak stomach didn't seem like a good idea at the time, so I snuck out to the other side of the road and barely avoided tripping over the bodies laying in it. But I was safe, or so I thought. That was way too close for comfort. I guess for a moment I forgot that you're never really safe anymore. The world these days is just depressing. Everywhere you go smells like death and rotting meat, and wherever you look it's nothing but destruction and corpses, either stationary or moving. But if I managed to survive, then surely there are more survivors. I couldn't possibly be the sole survivor, could I? I was close to my destination, and to say that I was anxious would be an understatement. No, I was terrified. My blood felt like ice, and it felt like my heart was about to burst from my chest. But I was ready for anything. I needed to eat, and I suppose I would rather be killed by zombies than slowly waste away to starvation. I was relieved to find the place not swarming with zombies, but there were a few of them, and they were the only thing standing between me and my meal. It was time to get to work. With the world the way that it is these days, the opportunity to say that life is good has become exceedingly rare. But I'll tell you what, when I walked into that store and saw all the food it had, yeah, life was good, and I was alive for another day.